ma se resume eventualmente.
Don't forget our gift cards at RitaYanez.com, and so am I. Under your bed.
Turn on the light! Turn on the light! Turn on the light!
Hi there, Aquarius. This is your weekly reading for the week of December 7th through 13th. We've got a new moon on the 11th, and this will be an interesting one for sure. We have some activity that if you happen to know your natal chart, and if you've got any planets or objects at 14 and 16 degrees, you might want to check because we've got this cardinal T square, which actually will peak around the 11th, and this is causing a little bit of a challenge in that it's in Capricorn, which is your 12th solar house, where there could be some stirrings of deeper thoughts, maybe some past life associations. The 12th house is the house of everything and the house of self-undoing. So you want to make sure that whatever it is that's being dredged up for review, whatever it is you find yourself reflecting on or pondering, that you don't stay there so long that you get stuck in the past or stuck in the areas of thought that really do nothing to help you move forward. I believe that if there's anything from the past to rehash, to think about any subconscious programming, whether you've done it to yourself or it happened when you were a child, that you get that out of your system. And if you feel effectively that you can't really do anything with this information, then best thing to do is to have a journal or a logbook or a file on your computer where you can take some notes, close the program, and let it be there. I love Microsoft products, of course, you guys know, and I love their note-taking programs. I just really like a lot of their features that I can just, between that and Google products, right? Pop up a note here and there, have it go everywhere, but not need to access it until I actually want to. So keep that in mind. You don't need to get stuck there. Uranus also squaring Pluto is really being stimulated by Mars at 14 Libra, your ninth house. So there's some connection to something going on as it relates to foreigners, foreign places. It could also be regarding spiritual pursuits, higher education, even situations that are tied to, say, the country that you hail from or your ancestors come from. There could be a connection here. So I would keep that in mind. Also, we still have Neptune squaring Saturn, reminding us to think about whatever it was that was going on in 2007, because there's a connection here that will help you kind of put all this to bed. Maybe there's just a piece of information that you need to reflect on and be done with it. The Uranus-Pluto square, of course, is somewhat ongoing. It is now about a degree from exact, and it still is prone to creating disruptive patterns, but with the intention of moving you forward and into a new trajectory. So it will peak here on Sunday and Monday, the 6th and the 7th. So keep that in mind. The first card that you've drawn is the Two of Swords. And this card indicates being at a kind of crossroads and almost refusing to take action, take sides. You may be pulled or torn between two choices, and that you feel, for lack of a better word, blinded by both options. And so if that's the case, try to keep your temper in check, because on the same day, Mars in Libra, your solar ninth house, again, that house of spirituality, higher spiritual pursuits. For some people, it could relate to religion. And this is the house where we see higher learning, education, that is advanced. And that could be relative for you. It could be certifications or other skills that you want to add to your skill set, or skills that you have that you want to sharpen and hone. Also could pertain to legal matters for those of you that are involved in any work, correcting or initiating visas, residencies, these kinds of citizenship issues. Mercury will slow down and begin its pre-shadow phase. And so if you need to initiate something and it is brand new in that you haven't taken any action, you need to think about whether or not you want to take action just shortly after the new moon on the 11th, not before, after. And or what are the consequences if you can't move forward with this now? Can it wait until optimally mid-February? Now, if you're like, no, Rita, I've got irons on the fire, I've got problems here, then you're going to have to just do what you have to do, because sometimes we get past that freshness guaranteed by date. And you just have to do what you have to do. Obviously, for example, if a debt collector's banging on the door, now they know where you live and they're trying to serve you with some crap, you may just have to accept it and show up in court, right? And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but it's just giving you an example that it could have been mitigated or otherwise handled before. But if it's time to handle it and time is of the essence, then you just need to take care of it. This is also a point here where Mars could have us somewhat overly aggressive about a situation, and it may have been the entire duration of this Pluto-Uranus square, at least in its active phase, for about the last 3 years. But we're winding down. I mean, we can all be hopeful that this is just going to separate more and more, every day. It's very slow, of course, obviously, but if you can't make a determination, if you can't pick a side, if you can't take any action, then you need to just wait until a better opportunity presents itself, or where you have more information or whatever. But only you would know what that situation is as it relates to that ninth house, and what it is that you might be in denial about in your 12th house. On the same day here, we have that reminder that we have to be responsible for ourselves. And I love to use myself as the example that I think that there's been no one as good at failing as I've been, and that sometimes we just need to not point fingers, not even point fingers at ourselves, and just get the thing done. We just have to get the thing done, get over the hump of whatever it is that is proving to be an obstacle in whatever way. On Tuesday, we've got the Ace of Wands in reverse. And so here again, we have an inability to initiate, or that we are ready to initiate and other circumstances don't let us move forward. And, it doesn't mean that this isn't a valid opportunity. It doesn't mean that your idea isn't great. It doesn't mean anything other than the timing obviously isn't right, because with the Wands, we understand that it's almost cyclical, in that we know we could have the best seed packet in the world, and we could have cultivated the earth perfectly, tested the soil, been ready for the pumpkin patch or tomato garden or whatever it is. But obviously, as it relates to something being planted, taking root, germinating, taking root and pushing up through the soil, that really depends on what it is we're planting, isn't it? It might not even be the right time to move forward. I can't tell you how many times I've been frustrated by having the right idea, the right momentum. I could feel that my health is solid, and then boom, I can't do anything because there's just no way to push it forward. And then having to find other outlets for this same kind of energy. And that's what Mars can do. Mars doesn't just make us want to punch each other in the face. It also can make us feel very energetic and passionate and almost on fire, to be able to move forward. So just recognize that if it is not a possibility to move a project, a situation, a thing, a goal, an objective, a job, a project, whatever it is that you can't move forward, it probably is more or less because of timing. Now, some of you may be thinking, Rita, could I have missed the boat? Well, I don't know. We'd have to sit down and talk about every single aspect of it. And in the process, I would interview you and ask you, where would you have had opportunities to move something forward? Not shoulda, woulda, coulda, I should have done it here, I should have done it there. But really, what were the opportunities? Where were the open doors, right? And sometimes when we think we could look back and woulda, shoulda, coulda, we realize that there was no way, that the situation just wasn't appropriate for the action that we wanted to take. And on Tuesday, we've got Mercury at 27 degrees Sagittarius squaring the North Node in Virgo. So for you, Sagittarius is your 11th solar house, and the North Node in Virgo is your solar 8th house. So we have an issue here where there seems to be a general consensus among the group or the organization or the tribe, the posse, the group of individuals that are in the same boat, as it were, as you. And the North Node is saying focus over here, which is your 8th house. It's in your 8th solar house. So now those nodes have shifted, which you know that they move approximately every 18 months. And so they're mathematical points in the sky. And it's on the axis of your 2nd and 8th house, which is great, because I always find that when the focus is on the 2nd house, resources, and the 8th house, things like, I love to joke about this, but I don't ever mean it jokingly, but the 8th house rules death and taxes, the things you can't avoid, transformation. That also is the house that rules the effort, the conjoined kind of properties of the result of two people either working together, partner together, best friends in business with each other, in a hobby together, the marriage and what it produces, including the sexual relationship associated with it. And it doesn't have to be sexual. I mean, not everybody's just jumping on each other every moment of the day, because we have other things to do too, once we realize that these things won't get done by themselves. So here, I believe the opportunity to make some corrections here is appropriate, and that it can be used in this phase because you've got a new moon here. And this new moon in Sagittarius in the 11th house might put you in the sphere of influence or in an area where you could make some new contacts. Again, you're going to find that you can't really move forward with anything yet, but that's okay. If you get worried about anything happening in your 2nd or 8th house and you're going, oh crap, I just know that I need money and I need money now to flow easier, and you might start to get that sensation of lack, don't overfocus there. Because what I usually find is when that 2nd house is stimulated, and even if there are more expenses than usual, whether in terms of repairs or having to pay down some debts, I always find that when a person stays conscious and rubs their little eyes and splashes the cold water on their face, that they actually get out there and hustle and make some money, and they get more driven, maybe to put their talents to use in consulting, maybe to put their talents to use in negotiating with the Internal Revenue Service or with the franchise tax boards, to lower your obligation by, in example, explaining, right? Transformation, 8th house, explaining that it's becoming troublesome and that you can't keep your lights on if you have this large EFT or your taxes that you're making in installments are just too high. So see it as an ability to negotiate, because the sun at 16 Sagittarius will also trine Uranus in Aries. So you may have a eureka moment. Be very gentle, be very sweet, remain convicted of what it is that you want to sell this other entity on, whether I'm just going to use the tax example because that's one where most people get kind of stuck, where they're like, I can't talk to the IRS. They're bad people. No, they're just there doing their job, trying to help you. They don't want to have to try to correct it now way past its expiration date where they can't save you from your situation. But the more you reach out and communicate at this time without losing your temper. Now remember that, because Mars doesn't really like being in Libra. It can give that energy, but if it becomes combative, or it's a combative house, or there's a situation that is needing to be confronted and could become like a challenging conversation, you don't want the Mars energy to make you argue. There's no need to argue or force the issues. So just keep that in mind. Now on Wednesday, we've got the Five of Cups, and this is a card that indicates you may not be really happy about how you've ended up in this position or why the scenario has not improved. But this is the card that carries a tagline: there's no use in crying over spilled milk. I mean, even if you sucked it up with a sponge, what are you going to do? Wring it in somebody's mouth and give them the bacteria? Oh gosh, sponges are just the nastiest thing ever. If I can't bleach them, then I throw them away periodically. If I can't, I usually take them and then I give them a new lease on life in the bathroom, if you know what I mean. And so at that point, it's never going back to the kitchen. But there's no sense in crying over spilled milk. There's no sense in spanking yourself, flagellation, where you're just going to punish yourself now. There's no sense in this. All we're doing is moving forward, and these are just kind of like the ins and outs of every day. And so this card is indicating you'd be better served to keep your eyes to the future and to be hopeful and to use the experience you've learned and to use some of those skills now, where we learn this experience in hindsight, which it really doesn't change anything about the past, but it does give us the ability to better manage situations in the future. The sun in Sagittarius will square Chiron in Pisces. So again, that's your 11th house and your solar second house. Mercury will be slipping into Capricorn at that point, your 12th house. And so you may be reflecting and thinking about things, but like I said, don't get stuck there for too long. Also, you could be very interested in the occult as well. I hate to use that word because it sounds so Amityville horror-like. The esoteric is my preferred word, and I apologize if those archaic words, kind of backward words, fly out of my mouth. So don't get too stuck there, but if you take time to reflect, say that you'll think about reflecting on the toilet. I mean, I tend to read, when I'm in the bathroom, I'm constantly reading, and so I've got every device kind of attached to me. It's ridiculous. But take some time to say, okay, so whenever I'm sitting on the toilet, playing my little Tetris game or whatever I do, I will let my thoughts turn toward the internal. And then, like when you leave the bathroom, make the commitment to not take it with you, put on the tunes, enjoy some music. I don't know anybody who isn't at least uplifted or annoyed by the Beach Boys, or, put on the Brothers Gibb, the Bee Gees. Remember that? I'm totally dating myself now. I think I better stop while I'm ahead. On Thursday, we've got the Chariot in reverse. So here it just indicates that we need to work on balancing the opposing, so it could be balancing the emotions, the contradictions that we can sometimes let take too much hold, where I'm so mad I've made these mistakes, now I gotta move forward, but I'm so mad, I'm so pissed, I can't stop dwelling on this bullshit. And then the point is you have to actually kick yourself in the ass so that you can come off of this groove like a scratch on a record, where somebody's got to move that needle, because it's just not gonna jump grooves, all on its own. Here on the same day, the need for balance is obvious because, again, Mars and Libra, the solar 9th house, opposes Uranus and Aries, that third house of communication. So again, there could even be those little stupid arguments that happen at home or with people that you're close to, or you pick up the phone to call the one relative that you can just bitch out, and they'll just say, okay, I love you too, and do you feel better? And then you go, okay, yes, I do, actually, thank you. If you've got a relative like that, that's fantastic, because not everybody does. Most people will be like, I don't want to hear your crap, and that's not good. We all need to be heard in some way, and I can think of many occasions where I've picked up the phone and just vomited emotions all over my brother. I think I've even done it to my sister-in-law, where it just blah, 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 all came out because I didn't realize I was about to have a complete crying nervous breakdown over something that I can't believe is happening to me. And where, especially like the one I told you guys about, my stepdad picking up the phone and yet again completely insulting me in every freaking bad word for no damn reason. It was so bizarre. It was so sci-fi. It was so night gallery. It was so Twilight Zone. And I ended up I'm sure I couldn't even hardly breathe, but at least he listened to me. And my brother, hi, Alex. He's actually one of these people that are very good to throw up all over because he's able to stop it, truncate it. I think that he's very intuitive when it comes to picking up on what I need, which is really somebody to just stop me and tell me, it's okay, solve it. That's very much what a Scorpio needs, is for somebody to just smack you in the back of the head. I have a Pisces moon, 7th house, don't you know? And so, of course, I really need somebody to just help me shut down the emotions so that I don't continue. Venus and Scorpio here on the same day will trine Neptune and Pisces. So here we have your 10th house of careers lit up in a beautiful way. You seem to be the person that people can actually talk to at work. If you're working, if you're retired, then of course it could be you talking to your family, your downline, your children, your grandchildren, other people that are coming to you for some mentoring. You're able to talk them through and give them the right information that they need, the best advice without offending them, right? Most people are able to ask for advice, but then when they receive it, you know how they don't always really want to take it? When we're like, we're not personally pointing out your mistakes, okay? We're just trying to help you fix it. We're trying to come up with ideas, brainstorming, how do we fix it? And so here, for you, the Venus in Scorpio is making you come across as very reliable, very intelligent, having the right words without sounding slutty, if you know what I mean, like not brown nosing at work. You're coming across very credible and even insightful, even intuitive about trends, trajectories that you saw long ago, mistakes that you could have plotted out on a freaking map with little red pins. It could have been like this. And so the Neptune in Pisces is telling me that this could benefit you financially. Now, we can only hedge our bets as far as we're willing to risk, but if you're already at the job and it isn't going to really cause you more problems at all by just trying to present solutions, I would say present them. This isn't a day that I'd be too concerned with. I really don't even feel bad about it. On Friday, we've got the new moon here. So anything that you're going to initiate or really needs the breath of spirit of newness, behind it. Don't act before the new moon. Act shortly thereafter or within a day or so. It's a Friday, so at least here in the United States where I am. So it's a situation where you might just have to take action maybe on the planning stage of it over the weekend. And then if anything, Monday, you're fine. New moons have an area, of course, of influence about 10 days. Could think just a couple of weeks, and each day thereafter that the new moon starts to lose its potency, because now we're filling up to the full moon, and that will be December 25th, and it will be in a sensitive place. That's going to be in Cancer. And so, that's your solar 6th house. We'll talk about that more later, but I'm not too worried about that one for you guys. I really want you to use this new moon on Friday. Also, Mars in Libra, 9th house, will quincunx. That's an inconjunct to Chiron in Pisces, the 2nd house. So be ready to make adjustments. If you really wanted to buy this wonderful television or a brand new computer or this, that, maybe a sled for your dogs, whatever it is, you may have to make an adjustment and go, whoa, okay, so I had an expense here I wasn't really anticipating, but thank God I didn't buy that yet. And this is one of those weird Christmas seasons, and that Mercury, again, will be in that pre-shadow phase there. So just keep your receipts on everything you purchase. I would be really careful about things that are almost impossible to return, like a vehicle, a house, obviously. Getting into financial agreements that are very binding, like picking up that gym membership that later you're like, what was I thinking? I don't even like to move my ass cheek, let alone didn't think I'd stay motivated that long. So just make sense of what you're doing. The 10 of Wands in reverse could be talking about you feeling a little bit fatigued too. So give yourself some extra TLC because this is a great moon, but there's kind of the undercurrent I've been talking about of this Mars in Libra, this Pluto-Uranus square. We almost get pissed and want to fight. And then you'll even see these people backpedaling if they do lose it. They're like, God, sorry. I didn't know what got into me. I just lost it. So we want to help ameliorate and de-escalate situations. So if you feel yourself getting emotionally involved in a situation or just losing your temper where you're just going to tell somebody what you know they need to hear, it's aggressive. And we need to think about this because by position, there's a sextile here that's trying to help us, but at the same time, we want to really like smack somebody in the back of the head. I've been telling people, I know, Alex, you've probably called me so many times and I'm barely getting any sleep. I've had to make rearranging a priority for my channel, a bunch of other things I've had to handle to where I finally dyed my roots yesterday. And then today I noticed, wow, I didn't even wash this crap out completely. And I was just like, boy, I'm lucky I got a shower at all. Have to like remind myself, get up, brush the teeth, keep moving, feed people in the morning, get them in and out. And I've been exhausted. So make sure you take good care of yourself. On Saturday, we've got the Four of Swords, which is great because it shows me that your mind is now coming down from all of this thinking. You probably have had a headache, at least one this week, right? Going, I just can't even handle so much thinking. The Four of Swords tells you to rest, contemplate what your plan of action is for next week. It does, I promise you, get easier from here. Just need to get past that new moon. And you need to sleep on it. If you're going to make any major decisions, then of course, if it's worth being such an important priority, it's worth, if at all possible, to sleep on it, let it rest. It's kind of like when you're making bread. I don't know if you've ever done this and you're exhausted and then you throw that lump of dough down and you just have to wait for it to rise or not. It could be one like that stuff, alumnus bread in those, what are those movies? I was going to say Land Before Time. You could see how tired I am. In the Lord of the Rings movies, when I'm just like, boy, that reminds me of something I did in high school. So on Sunday, we have the Five of Pentacles in reverse. I don't really feel cause for concern. I think that this is more your perception of the idea of lack. If you kick my ass tomorrow because you got fired and you're like, you didn't warn me. Well, I can't see every situation for you because, of course, I'm talking to you, but I'm going to extreme lengths, to make sure that I can access your soul or do something creepy. It's really not invasive. I'm not touching you anywhere where the sun doesn't shine, but it might feel like it for some of you. This is the energy more of you being concerned that you won't have enough. Well, if you dwell on it long enough, you won't have enough. You could burn the pennies away into the wee hours with the light on, right? You got the electricity on and you're worried about money. Turn off the damn light, go to bed, take Tylenol PM or some Benadryl or something to go to sleep when you can't turn your head off. So this is really more talking about being resourceful, I think, and realizing that you're not in as bad a position as you think you are. I know that that's a subjective feeling, and it's me just looking at this from the outside in, knowing how I usually react in situations like this. I can get myself into a state trying to get this bill paid, trying to do this one thing, being resourceful about how it gets done. And so don't really focus on the lack, focus on what you have and how you can better utilize the resources that you have available, better restructure the way you handle your finances or your sense of security, because it could also be the location or the lack of a firmament in what foundation and stability means to you. I spent a very frightening period of time homeless. And it was thank you to my ex-husband. And so really he screwed himself in the end. But the whole ordeal, had I not been throwing so much money into legal defense to try to save the falling apart haunted house, which really was ego driven because I didn't want to lose. In the end, he did. He got 1099 for 82,000. How do you like that? My mistake for putting the house under his name is a long story. So in that time of extreme lack, uncertainty, concern for my children, I had to find it within myself to realize that all things come to pass in whatever way necessary for us to make corrections, adjustments. I'm not one of the people that likes to say, well, there's a reason for everything and your child or dog dying of cancer, God forbid. No, that's just a part of the process of life and death and disease and who knows what other factors. I really can't say. But finding that different perspective on what is lack, what is security, I came to realize that as long as my children were safe and as long as I had a plan B or a recourse if I couldn't make the correction, which really it went from being a disaster and in less than 30 days being completely solved and permanently so, that stability to me was just making sure that my kids were in front of me and that everything was going to be okay and that I learned one hell of a lesson, in terms of who I trusted. And sometimes that's really where our identification of one sensation or another, like how we identify what is lack, what is stability. I know people that are so wealthy that if you told them they could no longer get their $500 hair treatment done at a certain place, it's like the end of the world. And I'm like, seriously, dude? Because you know what? To me, not having enough food or not having clean water, not having shelter is probably shaking my foundation a little bit. And here you are having a piss party because you can't get your hair done by some famous weirdo. And, God bless everybody for, of course, whatever is relevant in their lives to be associated with lack. But come on, I think most of us, you guys, we know, if you've got two nickels to rub together, you're probably better off than the majority of people, believe it or not, because at least you're liquid to a degree.